Hello, my friends. Happy Saturday. Hope everybody's weekend is off to an amazing start. The weather is pretty amazing here in Arizona. Hopefully, you're able to get outside, get some nature, connect with friends and family, unplug from politics after this video because there are a few things to talk about today. You can see over on Rantingly, headlines here and on Breitbart and a couple other places are border is going to be a big problem again. Now, we're quite used to that by this point in time. We've had this season 3, season 4 with this current administration, but we know that it's going to just continue to get worse because it is. You can see here 221,000 illegal migrants encountered at the border. ICE wasted 17 million. We talked about earlier in the week, Greg Abbott from Texas shipping migrants to Washington, D.C., and it's all been this political hot potato that both parties have been passing around forever. We've had many crises before. We'll continue to have many crises ongoing because I'm pretty sure both parties just want that. So we'll kind of jump over the immigration stuff for the time being. Yesterday, we were trying to find where Joe Biden was. Couldn't really find him because they didn't update his schedule on factbase.com, which is where, or Factbase, well, you know what the address is. But went over there yesterday, couldn't find Joe Biden at all. Went back today, still no Joe Biden, no schedule, which is a little bit strange because we typically see his schedule even on the weekends. When we scroll back down, we can see last weekend we got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, he wasn't doing much because he just sort of goes into his, I think, bio rehabilitation chamber where they stretch the skin out and inject him with whatever. But we can at least see where he's at. We got a Friday on the 8th last week. The weekend before that, we got a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Again, no public events scheduled. And you can see, you just kind of keep scrolling down. We get the weekends, we get the Fridays, the Saturdays, and the Sundays. And typically, they're up to date. So I don't know where Joe Biden is. Joe Biden probably doesn't know where Joe Biden is. And the world will just continue on. Not sure who's running the country exactly, but that's okay. Somebody's wrecking it regardless of, I guess, who we officially know to be wrecking it. So on Twitter, several stories, one coming over from Technofog. He went through a lot of the Sussmann data because there was a whole slew of motions that came out in the Steve Bannon case, which is unrelated to this, but also in the Sussmann case. On Friday, there were several different drops that came out. We'll take a look at them. I think I've got Sussmann here. I do. You can see we have on April 15th, we had 3 different documents be filed, and several of them are referencing motions in limine. Remember, motions in limine are motions to sort of address preliminary issues before the trial starts. You don't want to, in the middle of the trial, get in and hash out all these complicated issues in front of the jurors and sort of pause everything. You got witnesses waiting. So you try to deal with the preliminary matters early and get them out of the way. Here you can see there were several different motions that were filed by both sides, stemming back into late March, early April. See here, let's say April 4th, motion in limine to preclude special counsel. So Sussmann and his defense filed this. Here we have another one by Michael Sussmann. He's got good lawyers. He filed another motion in limine. The U.S. government filed one back on April 4th. There, we'll see what that one's all about. But now when we fast forward to April 15th, we see that the responses and the replies are now going to be filed and be due. So typically the way this works, or the way that it does work, is the moving party files a motion, you get a response to the motion, and then you get a reply to the response from the moving party. Here you can see we've got memos in opposition by the USA. So Sussmann filed a motion to exclude the government's experts, and now the USA is responding to them. And so these are all going to be pretty big, meaty, substantive documents that we can really dissect. You can see here, in particular, on April 15th, a memo in opposition by the USA. So these are the Durham prosecutors are opposing Michael Sussmann's motion in limine to do all of the following things. He's got several of them. He wants to try to preclude the testimony from FBI Director Bill and Deputy General Counsel Trish over at the FBI. Remember, these were the two people that were connected with the general counsel from the FBI who actually met with Sussmann. So Sussmann came in, sat down with, forget his name at the moment, but he sat down with them and talked to that general counsel for the FBI. Then he communicated that conversation to these two people, Bill Prystap and Tricia Anderson. And then they took notes. And in those notes, which we've talked about many times here, they say that Sussmann told them, not here on behalf of any other client or something very close to that, not representing a client. And that's essentially what the crux of this case is about, is Durham is saying that they lied. He lied about that to the FBI. He was there specifically on behalf of Hillary Clinton because he went back after their meeting and he sent her a bill for it. So you can't sort of bill somebody for client work and then tell the FBI that you're not doing that on behalf of a client. It doesn't work that way. So what he wants to do, Sussmann, of course, his defense, they want to keep all that stuff out. They don't want the prosecutors, Durham, to come in here and show these notes to the jury because the jury's going to say, well, that looks pretty bad there, buddy boy, which is true. So they're filing a motion to preclude that, and they're going to say whatever they're going to say. You can see, and we'll go through that in more detail in a separate video, but motions in limine to preclude evidence about the gathering of data, motion to dismiss the case if Rodney Jaffe's not already immunized. And we talked about that. We did a whole video on that because what they're trying to do is get Jaffe, who's tech executive number one, the guy who was sort of enabling all of the spying because he had that government contract and university resources so he could literally plug in to the DNS system and see where the traffic's going. Well, all that's taking place, and they want Sussmann's defense immunity for Rodney so that they can bring him in here and say, oh, no, we weren't doing any of this on behalf of Hillary, or really come in and support Sussmann's defense. So they want to have, another witness that really can't have any criminal liability if he talks, so that he can come in and say, we didn't do anything wrong. Of course, the prosecution doesn't want to immunize him for that because they don't want to give the defense another witness who can come in and lie through his teeth to the jurors knowing that he's got immunity. In my opinion, that's how that would go. I'm not calling him a liar, but probably would be very interesting testimony if he had total immunity to say whatever he wanted. Now, they would carve out a perjury, sort of exception to that. The point is that they don't want him to testify, period. So we'll see where this goes, but you can see lots of motions filed, and then we're going to have replies from the government and from Sussmann defense on both of these things. Now, I have not had time to go through a lot of this, but of course, the good Technofog has. And so go over to Technofog Substack. You can see technofog.substack.com. He's gone through this about 6 hours ago, looks like. CIA bombshell says Sussmann data was user created. So go over there and you can see a little bit more about sort of what he uncovered. But in general, there was this section from one of the new motions saying that Agency 2 concluded in 2017, so right after Trump won, that the Russian bank story was not technically plausible, did not withstand technical scrutiny and contained gaps, conflicted with itself, and was user created. Now, agency number 2 is the CIA, because after Sussmann met with the FBI, he went over and hung out with the CIA and told them the same story, not on behalf of anybody. Now, this matches exactly the critical emails that came from Rodney Jaffe's team. Rodney Jaffe, tech executive number 1, got emails from his people when he was emailing them saying, we got some VIPs, referring to Hillary Clinton, encouraging them to go sort of create an inference or find information that supports an inference that Donald Trump was involved in collusion with the Russians. He said, why don't you go and do this? And well, how do we do that? He said, well, I don't know. Why don't you look for, resources out there? And here's a very unique data source that we got because I've got private access to it. I get to jack into the backbone of the internet and monitor all this. So why don't you just monitor it and see if you can create an inference? They tried. I don't know. We got these phone IP addresses. We could make it sort of look like that. Is that what you want us to do? And without saying so, he was saying, yeah, I do want you to do that. And they said, in response to him in emails that are now a part of the court record that we covered, he said specifically, the response from his team was, they're going to be able to identify this. They're going to be able to figure this out. Anybody who's marginally competent from the Republicans are going to say, this is obviously fake. What do you want us to do about that? And he said something like, maybe we should regroup, or is this a good time to reconvene and, re-theorize about whether this project is working or not? And said specifically, it seems like we have just a bone to pick with Trump. We just don't like Trump, so we're trying to make something up, but it's going to be rebutted easily by anybody who's competent. Fortunately, the CIA apparently was competent enough to make that conclusion. They didn't apparently communicate it to anybody, or the FBI, or to Hillary, or to the public at large. They just kind of let this whole thing meander on through the ecosphere because it was damaging to Trump, I'm sure of it. But here, right, they found it. Yeah, doesn't make sense, not logically consistent at all. Also, it says, in addition to their representation of the defendant, Sussmann, a separate lawyer for the firm is representing Hillary, that was Mark Elias, as well as multiple former employees. Government pursued researcher to immunity. So go over to, of course, Technofog's Substack to read, the rest of his analysis on that. We'll have a video coming out on this soon. You can see it's probably not going to just focus on that one motion in limine, but there are just so many different issues flying around. And this is what you would expect in a situation like this. I mean, Berkowitz and Bosworth are the two defense lawyers really working on this case. And, these are high profile guys from very powerful entities, and they're working on behalf of very powerful entities, largely the DNC, Perkins Coie, Mark Elias, Sussmann, the entire infrastructure for the DNC and the Hillary sort of effort to take power. And they are now in a battle that is sort of the tip of the spear. If the Sussmann defense falls on this, I think many people on their defense team are sort of wondering, this might be the first domino that causes a big cascade of consequences for the rest of, Democrats, anybody else who was involved in this. So you can see why they're throwing so much weight behind the defense, and it's going to be good to follow. So speaking of docket updates, let's see what's going on with Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, of course, is getting very close to trial. Not that close. Sussmann's closer. I created a docket here so we can keep track of some of this stuff on just a simple Google Calendar. Sussmann's going to be up first. We've got trials in May, like less than a month away, I think, is when we have our next pre-trial conference. And then literally 1 month from today, trial starts. Ooh, that's going to be good. So Sussmann is heating up, which is why there are all these motions in limine and motion memos in opposition. We're going to see responses, replies all over the place because they're gearing up for trial. We're resolving these preliminary issues, and the court wants to get it solved before trial starts. Back to the docket, then we can see that we've got Rhodes is coming up in July, and then Bannon also in July. So Bannon July 18th is going to be the first trial date that I last saw from the docket. We got Mosby coming up in September, and then another Rhodes Oath Keepers case. So trial one for the Oath Keepers is coming up sooner than I thought. So Bannon, it's not until July, but they are still filing a bunch of motions. So let's see what's going on here. We have on April 15th, the Friday night drop. You can see, look at this beautiful piece of artwork here, this motion to dismiss by Steve Bannon. And look at all these exhibits. Oh, it's just going to be so much fun to go through these. You can see it is a doozy. We've got, looks like 31 different exhibits with the text of the proposed order. It's going to be a motion to dismiss the case. Let's pull this up open from Court Listener and take a look at the table of contents. 62 pages. You can see the motion to dismiss the indictment. So it's a big one. And we'll go through this in a little bit more detail than I want to spend time on here. But you can see the subpoena was not lawfully issued. The prosecution violates due process, saying that the fake January 6th committee didn't have any authority to do what they did, which I think is largely true, must be dismissed because the select committee has no authority to compel production of a privilege log, unconstitutional effort to make an example out of Bannon. You just have to put the hat on the other foot. Put the hat on the other foot and see how this feels. What if this is opposite? What if Trump's in power? Trump has some garbage committee full of stupid Republicans, and they're out there going after all these Democrats. We'd be sitting here going, I would be sitting here saying, this is nonsense. We want political prosecutions from our government losers up there prosecuting each other. You know what goes after that? Next is everybody else who opposes them. Once they take out their political opponents, then anybody who speaks out anytime is now sort of an enemy, a homegrown domestic violent extremist, or somebody who's speaking out against the opposition, the power. We don't want any of that. So I think that largely the government, I have a problem with prosecutions in general, so I think you can understand that. But the prosecution violates due process, they say here, entrapment, public authority, saying Bannon relied on official authoritative DOJ policy on how to handle this. Also just making the argument the entire statute is unconstitutional as applied to this case. It violates separation of powers. Bannon has a little bit of an interesting addition there since he did work in the White House. And I think you could make the argument, he's sort of officially part of the executive in some way. And now, there are appropriate checks and balances on the executive branch. Is a garbage subcommittee filled with Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and, the other knuckleheads who failed at 2 impeachments. Are they the appropriate check on the executive branch? I don't know, maybe you think so. Prosecutorial overreaching requires dismissal of the indictment. Then we get a conclusion out of this thing. So I'm going to guess that there's some juicy stuff in here that will be fun to go through. But as you can see, a lot of it is just legalese, right? It's a lot of text, a lot of these cases. U.S. versus Bannon is a 1892 case. Wow, so that's fun. So you can see a lot of background and some info, but then we're going to just get into some heavy stuff. So a lot of this stuff is not, great for video, so we'll not dig into it here, but limits on the subpoena. We're going to take a look at Section 5 procedure, separate orders as demonstrated in serving the subpoena. Then you get a little bit of analysis. When you see legal writing, oftentimes you'll see sort of the issue. It's called IRAC, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. And you'll see sort of mini IRACs within the big document. So you'll see, a general structure. What's the issue? What are the rules? We'll do some analysis, then we'll come to a conclusion. And then within sort of the analysis section, or within even, multiple sections, you may see a breakdown of each one of those into sub-IRACs. So you'll then see sub-issues with sub-rules and sub-analysis and sub-conclusions. And you can, when you're reading through some of this, you can just kind of fly through it, see if there's any good analysis that apply the law to the facts of the case. Here's maybe a good paragraph. In serving the subpoena on Bannon and his counsel, the select committee provided 10 pages of detailed notes. That unequivocal statement was made just 10 days before the indictment. And then it gives us the rules. Given that, the failure of the indictment should be dismissed. So there you go. You sort of like, the issue, the rule, the analysis, and the conclusion all in one sentence. Boom. You get a nice summary. And that's a nice way to kind of fly through these documents. If you're interested in flying through a bunch of legal documents, quick little methodology there. But there's a lot to go through, and so I'll take my time going through some of that this weekend and over the next week, because really there's going to be a back and forth on this. We're going to have ultimately probably oral arguments and a big substantive hearing on this, and so I don't want to go too into the weeds on it, but we do want to see what's happening here, because this is going to be a juicy one. So that was Bannon. We talked about Sussmann a bit. Sussmann, of course, he's also got trial coming up. Let's jump over to locals. We can see that Mr. MVP is dropping knowledge as usual, says Trump supporters are boycotting over in Disney. Michigan school under fire as student leaks a McCarthy questionnaire over from Zero Hedge, which is another good place I like to check and get some news. Does nice roundups, says a Michigan school system is under fire after a student posted a photograph of a questionnaire, asked deeply personal questions. Let's see what this looks like over from Inside the Classroom on Twitter. What is your complete name? What is your home address? What's your mailing address separate from your home address? How many people live there? You live with both your parents? If not, where do you live? You attend church? How many bedrooms are in the house? What the heck is this? What is this? Answer the following questions completely and honestly. Write only on this paper, write only in ink. Do not discuss the question or answer with anyone. Do not skip any questions. Do not mark any attempt to change. You will have 15 minutes to complete this questionnaire. Who is this going out to? To the parents of a student's parents. So I think this is going to just the students. Here is what they said about the story. Let's see what else is going on with this questionnaire. How many bedrooms? Has anyone in your family ever been convicted of a crime? Have you ever been in trouble at school? What did you do wrong? Do the adults in your family regularly vote in elections? If so, what political party, Democrat, Republican, or other, do they usually vote? If no, explain why they do not vote regularly. What country is this? Does your family have a car? What kind of car do they have? Is it paid for? How often do you visit a doctor? What reasons do you have for visiting a doctor on a usual basis? Have you ever talked to a counselor at school, been to a psychologist? Has any member of your family ever been to a psychologist? Have your parents or guardian ever lost their jobs? Or unable to keep working at the same place? Is alcohol allowed or served in your home? What is this all about? All right, so they say the school responded to this, and let's see here what we say. April 11th, students are learning about McCarthyism. Oh, they were provided a questionnaire, which looks like an official document. A student took a photo, shared it on social media. It's now spreading quickly. So let's see what this says. That doesn't really look like a joke, does it? What? Okay. The document were intentionally designed as a simulation of McCarthyism and to make students ask questions about, but to demonstrate how private citizens were invaded. Teachers designed this exercise years ago. First time we've experienced an issue with it. Apologize for misunderstanding it may have caused. We support our teachers. There was no harm done to the exercise. Certainly none intended. Should they see something that doesn't seem right to you, reach out directly to the teachers from South Administration. Oh, man. Well, look, it got me. I'll tell you that. I was about ready to burn down with pitchforks. I got pitchforks, several of them, strategically located around areas of concern around my household. And I was just going to grab one of my convenient pitchforks and start raging from the rooftops. But that makes sense. Now, they maybe could, make this look like not a real thing exactly. It does look like a real thing. I mean, I think it looks real. Brandon Wheeler, athletic director. Joseph, assistant principal. So are they sort of endorsing the McCarthyism? Are they the McCarthyists? Grosse Pointe Public School System. Hilarious. Yeah, it's a scary thing. Now, it doesn't. What are they doing with data if people fill it out and send it back? What if a student comes back and sends in, here you go. Here are all my answers. Is that getting stored anywhere? I doubt it. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's going right in the shredder, but my goodness. Well, it's a good lesson. It does make you want to rage, certainly. Now, I saw this one from Mr. MVP earlier, and he's saying if this is true, then watch out. There's going to be severe panic in D.C. KimDotCom is always a good, interesting follow. He posted this. I pulled this over up on Twitter, posted this April 15th. Says the Hunter Biden data thread. This is an announcement that the Hunter Biden data, including all previously deleted and recovered files, is now with WikiLeaks. It says the purpose of this tweet is to take the heat off the Swiss data forensics team that worked on the data. It says WikiLeaks has a powerful network of trusted media partners. Go over there to that website. Together, they'll make sure that every bit of data, every email, every text message, every document is going to be thoroughly analyzed. All data minus pics of kids and context will be provided to the public. Says this isn't a small task. We are talking about over 100,000 emails, backups of phones and messages, encrypted zip folders that need to be cracked. The forensics team found that Hunter Biden installed spyware on the phones of family members and made backups of those messages too. Yikes. Woo! That's going to be a spicy meatball. That's going to be a fun one to follow. And that is over from KimDotCom. He's an interesting follow. Let's see what else he's got going on right now. Yeah, Elon, of course, is in the news. Let's see here. Elon is trying to control what people think. That's our job.
So surprised about
Here, let's change the audio on this.
Who were Trump voters and are still Trump supporters. They go, yeah, you guys are going crazy. He's doing, what are you so surprised about? He's doing exactly what he said he's going to do.
Well, and I think that the dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts. And it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think. And that is our job.
Yeah, if you look at
that's our job. Yeah, so that's an old clip, of course, but Dave Portnoy is referencing that relative to Elon, and yeah, they're freaking out about Elon, of course. Should Twitter shareholders get an urgent vote to fire the Twitter board and accept Elon's offer? Not only is Twitter pooping their pantalones on their shareholders with their dilution pill, but they're showing they want to defend censorship model that created the political masters, right? He's a good follow. Cernovich said, have you considered that Twitter was blocking your offer, Elon, because they're afraid you'd obtain documents providing that they do in fact shadow ban and censor, which would contradict the sworn testimony made before Congress? Could be an Enron type of scenario you just uncovered there. Elon, if Twitter rejects your offer, then hit me up. Happy to build a decentralized one. So that is from Charles Hoskinson. Charles Hoskinson is the creator of Cardano, which is a interesting cryptocurrency that is something that I think is, a worthy look. You can see here that he is somebody who has a lot of followers. He's got a big social media presence. And so I think a lot of people in the decentralized space are now thinking about these ideas. How do we just go ahead and just wipe out Twitter anyways? If we can't buy it and make it open and free, well, we'll just build something differently. Well, we'll just, coalesce around a new organization that maybe creates their own. And there's ideas, about DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, that will sort of crowdfund, money to support a new infrastructure. I mean, it's regardless of what happens with Twitter. I mean, he's really created some momentum here. And if free speech is something that is, at the forefront of people's minds, and we see some real activity on this because people decide, all right, we've got some momentum on this, let's build something that works, that'd be great. I'd be all for it. whatever happens, I'm in favor of more free speech on Twitter, more free speech on any other platform that is run competently, for crying out loud. That would be very useful. And I think Elon, Charles, some of the other people behind this could really make it happen. Let's see what else is over on locals. Durham put out a Friday night light filing. We got that from Mr. MVP. We talked about that one, and so we'll cover that certainly. Joey Bondolero with a bad popo video being shared over on locals. Some more from Mr. MVP sharing the Supreme Court. We have grouchy old cat ladies here saying the Lori Vallow Daybell returns to the Idaho jail after being declared competent to stand trial. Interesting. Yeah. So this is interesting. Now, I haven't paid much attention to this case, but it looks like they're scheduled for a trial 10 weeks. It's going to be a doozy of one. January 2023, she's charged here in Arizona as well. But this has been something that I know has been going on for quite some time. What often happens with these, when you challenge somebody's competency, right, you got to make sure somebody knows what's happening. You don't want to prosecute somebody who has mental capacity issues. And so what they'll typically do is they'll, at least here in Arizona, we have a process whereby we sort of pause the case. We just say, okay, everything's scheduled, pause it. All right, everything's on hold. Speedy trial, all of those rules are kind of on hiatus for a minute. We take the defendant and we schedule appointments so they can go and meet with somebody who does an evaluation. Now, these are typically people that are court appointed, and so they're sort of independent from both sides, right? From the prosecution and from the defense. And they'll go and they'll have a meeting with this person. And typically it can be two people. So you'll have one evaluation. That person will sit down with them, ask them sorts of questions, sort of understanding and reasoning questions and descriptions about what happened and what's going on in their lives. And they'll make an evaluation, a determination of competency. And if that person is deemed to be, let's say, competent, well, there may be a question about that. So they'll send that person over to another counselor, and that other counselor will say, I agree, competent. So then that person will say, okay, well, two people took a look at your situation. They think you are okay. And then they'll sort of insert you back into the criminal process. If you go there and you have a disagreement between the two, let's say one person says competent, one person says incompetent, then you'll bring in a third person and they'll sort of break the tie, make a decision. If it's incompetent, then we have a whole separate system that I'm not going to get into here about whether they can be restored to competency and then, what that process looks like. And then they can be inserted in, or oftentimes, right, maybe not. There's a whole sort of separate way to handle a non-competent, not restorable person. And it gets complicated from there, but it's something that happened here where it sounds like it looked like she got declared competent and got inserted back into the process. And so trial will will start up again in January 2023. I think it was supposed to start earlier, but because of this competency stuff, it apparently did not. We've got some Dr. F stuff going on here. We've got Elon singing a meme, Elon is choreographing, or Elon is orchestrating some serious salty tears and cries to the sky, which is just a beautiful sight to see. Another one from Grouchy Old Cat Lady, the Christmas parade.
Competing interests and
Daryl Brooks.
Interests for everyone who is involved in
asking for a trial date.
Motion by the defense.
Mr. MVP with this one, Sussmann data being user created. We covered that. Teresa's here, says, what a shocker. I've lost another 3 hours of watch time since last night. That makes 20 hours this week alone. Thanks, YouTube. I'm going to keep going with the screenshot to track what they're doing. Oh, okay. So, yeah. So let's send some love to Teresa if you're over there. Teresa shared the Ducks yesterday. And we'll have to get some of those watch hours back up. Now, I need to watch some more Ducks, I guess. But here, Teresa is saying that YouTube is sort of reversing their total watch time. Yeah, get used to that there, Teresa. YouTube is constantly adjusting the analytics and the numbers and the whole deal. It's quite frustrating, no doubt. Vientikis is here, says, this channel keeps dropping some good stuff. I think this video gives an interesting look into what Schwab thinks, or at least what he wants us to think. Let's see what this channel says. Oh, I think Vientikis, I think you shared this with me on Twitter, didn't you? And thank you for that. Yeah, Net Gain is on YouTube. And so they're posting all sorts of stuff. Yeah, Klaus Schwab, I think I watched one of these. Let's see here. World Economic Forum. Yeah, I think I watched one of these too. So go check that channel out too, Net Gain. Let's see what else we've got here from Vientikis. Murphy orders a review of new standards in New Jersey for children. And we've got another one here. What's this one from V?
All this is Dr. Mubin Sayyed from Dr.
All right, so that's on some medical stuff over on YouTube. And then we get to our Friday Night Drops post. And so we're going to go over to YouTube. Here on YouTube, a couple comments from some supporters, and I appreciate that, everybody. He says, Happy Easter to you, Rob, and to family, and ID 2020 is evil, which represents the mark of the beast avoided. Happy Easter to you too, Bullgator, and I don't disagree with that. Yeah, so all right. And so I think it is relevant. It's a relevant comment. Darby says, Rob, have a blessed Easter. Thank you for the honest information you give us. That's very sweet, Lorena. Happy Easter to you too. And then some of those other comments came in over the past few days. And so I appreciate your support on YouTube, of course. If you want to join over on Locals, that's watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you want to support the show on YouTube, I appreciate it. And you can leave a comment, and I'll do my very best to get to those every time, as long as I don't forget. But that, my friends, is it for the headlines for the day. I hope everybody's having an amazing weekend and spending time with friends and family and unplugging from politics and all that good stuff. Getting that recharge that we all need, because we'll be back to do it again. Probably we'll have headlines tomorrow too. Why not? I'll see you then. Have a great night, my friends. Bye-bye.